Okay, Rockfin, I'm waiting on you. I'm waiting on you, Rockfin. Any day now. Oh, here we go. All right. Let's rock and roll.
Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo.
Hello. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope you had a great weekend. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Roundtable and Friday for the Sabby Show. And you can catch me here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Big shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. And I want to give shout out to people in the chat. What's going on? Hannah G says Sabby with a smiley face. Hello. What's going on? CBC Voter says happy dappy do Monday information via at Sabby Sabs. Thanks so much. Shout out to Gamer and Ganja for Life says hello. Greetings, Kinshi Jones says, hey, dear Sabby. Hello, Kinshi. What's going on? Yipper99 says, I don't know about y'all, but Monday went by fast. Thank God. Mondays are tough days for me too, Yipper99. I understand. I completely understand. Shout out to Lawrence Johnson. Always great to see you. He's a Sabby member, says doobie doobie doo. What's going on, Notori? I love your hearts and your fire. Greetings, KM4OOS. You got this. Thank you. I appreciate that. Greetings, Savvy Sav says, hi, Sabby. Savvy and Sabby. Cool. Hello to you as well. Shout out to Eric T. Red, who's a Sabby member, says, happy Monday to all. Greetings, Brandy Weaver says, hello. Hello, Brandy. What's going on? Sebastian says, hey. Shout out to Be Real says, yay, Sabs, with the hearts, with the hearts. Shout out to Miguel H says, peace. Greetings. Mary says, hi, everyone. Shout out to, Ashura. Damn, people leaving the ship because it's going to be a bloodbath since they don't make excuses for Biden and the Dems. I have a story I'm going to tell you guys tomorrow night about what's going to happen with the Democrats, more so progressive Democrats. But I'll tell you that tomorrow night. Shout out to Sweary Fairy says, hey, Sabby, with a smile. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. I want to go ahead and give a quick shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate your support. It really does help me. Here they are here. I have 4 categories to become a patron: members, Sabby, Sabsters, and Ultimate. If you are interested, all of their names are listed here. Thank you so much for your support, everyone. I really do appreciate it. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen. So, put up my other thing here. What are we going to talk about tonight? Let's go ahead and share my thumbnail here. Should be a pretty interesting discussion. Tonight, we're talking about Psaki resigning. Oh, it has only been a year, Jen. It has only been a year. We're going to get into that story. I'm also going to talk about Kamala's cringe Joy Reid interview. That was not good. There's 2 parts of that I want to talk about tonight. And I'm going to discuss Obama advisor hypocrisy. Who is David Axelrod and what happened over the weekend and why are people calling him a hypocrite? Makes you wonder, huh? So I actually want to give a quick shout out to my alma mater here. So let me go ahead and share this. If you have not heard, huge shout out to the University of South Carolina. That's my alma mater for undergrad. The women's basketball team, the Gamecocks, just defeated UConn to win its second NCAA women's basketball title. Congratulations, ladies. They got a new coach about 2 years ago. Her name is Dawn. She's been doing phenomenal things with that team, and they are finally getting the recognition that they deserve. So got to give congrats, got to represent the alma mater. So thank you. Thank you. All right. So I'm actually going to start with the Jen Psaki story. Let's go ahead and get into that. So I don't know if you guys saw this over the weekend, but Jen Psaki has announced that she will be resigning this spring as press secretary for the White House, and she is taking on a new position. Let's get into it. Boop. White House press secretary Jen Psaki plans to leave for an on-air role at MSNBC. Who, oh my God. Why am I not surprised? Why am I not surprised? So here is Jen Psaki here. Let's go ahead and get into this story. Made it larger for you guys. President Joe Biden's press secretary, Jen Psaki, is planning to leave the White House to take an on-air role at MSNBC. A source familiar with the matter told CNBC on Friday. Psaki, who is still fleshing out details with the company, is expected to leave the White House around May. So that's next month. Psaki will host a show for NBC's universal streaming platform, Peacock. She had reportedly also been in talks with CNN and other networks. So I just want to say something really quick here and jump back into this article. This is actually a good place to mention this. You notice that they said she's also been in talks with CNN and other networks. She decided to take the job at MSNBC. Now, why is this important? Because she is the White House press secretary. So what this really means is that she's still going to be defending Joe Biden because of the network that she chose to go to. So I want people to keep that in mind, because MSNBC and CNN, what do? They make excuses for Joe Biden. They make sure they tell a certain narrative. And now they are going to have the press secretary a part of their team. Now, this Peacock network that you guys may have heard of, that is affiliated with NBC. It's a streaming network. There's a lot of new shows that are over there. Again, just keep in mind it's affiliated with NBC when you're watching it. So you're still going to hear some of these same talking points. But the fact that they're bringing her on, that also goes to show you what I've been saying for a long time, is that these mainstream media channels work together with the United States government, and they are making sure that they tell a certain narrative. I kind of see this as, I don't know if I want to call it a conflict of interest, but to me, it says something. Like, it makes me feel some kind of way, right? I mean, they had Simone Sanders, who was actually really wanted to have that press secretary gig. She thought she was going to get it, and she didn't get it. Joe Biden decided to give that position to Jen Psaki instead. Now, the person that he decided to give the position to over Simone Sanders, which actually Simone Sanders should have gotten that position. Now that person has already decided to leave. She's only been there for a little over a year, and she's already deciding that she's going to step down out of this position. So this is kind of a slap in the face to Joe Biden in a sense. It's like, well, maybe if you would have chosen the person who really should have gotten that position, although I have my feelings about Simone Sanders, I think she was just being an opportunist. How do you go from Bernie Sanders' campaign, a progressive movement, to Joe Biden, right? But now both of them will be on MSNBC. So this should be interesting. I am not sure who is going to be the next press secretary. But let's go back into the article. All right, it goes on to say, Psaki did not immediately respond to CNBC's request for comment. At a press briefing later Friday, she neither confirmed nor denied reports that she would leave the Biden administration. By the way, that's usually a yes, just FYI. You can't get rid of me yet, Psaki told the first reporter to ask about her departure. I have nothing to confirm about my length of public service or planned service. My focus every day continues to be speaking on behalf of the president. Now, I want to jump in here for a second because this is something that they do often in media. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. Most of the time, if the answer is no and you're keeping that position, you would just say no. You would just let them know at the press conference, no, that's not true. I'm not stepping down. I'm not leaving this position. Notice she basically decided to plead the fifth. That's usually a yes. I'm just saying. So just had to point that out there. Just wanted to make light of that. Thank you for the super chat, Andrew. The more I follow politics, the more I believe the court of owls is real. They're rich Gothamites who use money and murder to wield political influence. Thanks so much for the super chat. Interesting. Lawrence Johnson said, can't get rid of her like a case of lice. I don't know. All right, let's go back in. Here we go. She also pushed back on multiple questions about whether it is ethical for her to pursue a media job while she is a government spokesperson. Okay, that's what I was just saying. To me, that kind of seems like a conflict of interest, right? Because if you are running for office and you have a political show, so let's say you are Rachel Maddow. Sorry to use that example. First person came to mind there. Let's say you're Rachel Maddow and you decide to run for office. Rachel Maddow would have to give up that position. You can't do both there. It is like a conflict of interest. And yes, there will be favoritism shown towards you. So I would say it's the other way around as well. If you are a government official, you are a press secretary, I don't think it's fair that you're able to just jump on these networks like that. It just doesn't seem like a fair playing field. And also, again, you are the press secretary for Joe Biden, the current president of the United States. So when you go onto these media networks, you are still going to have talking points that are going to defend and support Joe Biden. That's just the reality, even when he's in the wrong. Here we go. I have always gone over and above stringent ethical and legal requirements of the Biden administration, and I take that very seriously. This is funny. And as a standard for every employee of the White House, I have received rigorous ethics counseling, including as it relates to any future employment. I've complied with all ethics requirements and gone beyond and taken steps to recuse myself from decisions as appropriate. When she was asked how it could be ethical to do both things simultaneously, Psaki said she has followed the established legal and ethical rules regarding talks with future employers and tried to take steps to go beyond that as well. Notice she doesn't go into detail about what those steps are, though. She added that the White House policy in those situations require consultation with the White House counsel's office to ensure employees abide by any ethics and legal requirements. Psaki said she has taken those conversations very seriously. It's always you guys ever notice that? It's always we take these matters very seriously. Kamala Harris says that a lot. We're going to get into her in just a minute. Not everyone appeared convinced. I'm old enough to remember how grossed out we all were by the White House to Fox pipeline in the last administration. This is coming from Walter Schwab. He's the former head of the Office of Government Ethics during the Obama administration. And I'm young enough to think these government media linkage are still not super healthy, regardless of who's in the White House. So he tweeted that. Walter is dropping bombs here. We don't have anything to confirm about Jen's length of planned service or any considerations about future plans. That comes from a White House official. Jen is here working hard every day on behalf of the president to get you the answers to the questions that you have. And that's where her focus is. News networks have long looked to recruit spokespeople and other high-profile beltway figures for their day-to-day political coverage, both as anchors and regular contributors. I want to say this again, guys. This is what I was telling you about the people that they choose. News networks have long looked to recruit spokespeople and other high-profile beltway figures for their day-to-day political coverage. That's who they recruit. That's who they recruit. So when you see the commentators and you see the correspondents on these networks, just keep in mind they are looking for a certain type of individual. I'll give you an example. Anderson Cooper. Let's all remember Anderson Cooper is a Vanderbilt. Anderson Cooper didn't just come out of nowhere, just worked really hard in journalism school and they picked him. Anderson Cooper came from status. Anderson Cooper came from a wealthy family with a wealthy title, a family that has a name that everybody knows. Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo, remember, him and Andrew, their father was a politician. This is just something I want you to pay close attention to. Same thing. Al Sharpton. It's not like Al Sharpton was a nobody. Al Sharpton came from the civil rights movement. Everybody knows who Al Sharpton is. These are the people that they pick. They're going to give you some more examples here. Longtime ABC News host George Stephanopoulos, for instance, was formerly the White House communications director under President Bill Clinton. And I'm glad they mentioned this in this article because a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think he just, was a journalist, started the show. No, he worked under Bill Clinton. MSNBC political analyst and host Nicole Wallace was a senior spokeswoman for George W. Bush. Oh, I lost my spot here. Yep. For George W. Bush administration and a spokeswoman for John McCain's 2008 presidential campaign. We're going down memory lane here, folks, because sometimes people forget. Last March, former President Donald Trump's final press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, joined Fox News as a commentator. More recently, CBS News signed ex-Trump official Mick Mulvaney as a paid contributor. Psaki, this is important to note, served as President Barack Obama's communications director. She joined the current administration as press secretary in late 2020 prior to Biden's inauguration. The press secretary role tends to suffer from high turnover, perhaps the most visible of any communications job in the White House. Press secretaries in the modern age of video-driven news cycles are often ripe targets for an administration's critics. But at the same time, that comes with the job. I'm just saying. Trump cycled through 4 press secretaries in a single 4-year term. Obama had 3 in over 2 terms. His predecessor, Bush, had 4 in the same period. And Clinton burned through 5 in 8 years. Other Biden communication staff, such as Principal Deputy Press Secretary Karen Jean-Pierre, have at times taken the helm at the briefing room lectern instead of Psaki. Over the past week, Jean-Pierre, Communications Director Kate Bedingfield, and Deputy Press Secretary Andrew Bates all led interactions with reporters after Psaki tested for the 1-9. So let's come out. Yes, I did, Ashira. Laura Trump. That's another one. People don't get those positions just because they work really hard and they do really well at their job as a journalist or as a commentator. That used to be how it was. Like, I studied broadcast journalism. It used to be back in the day, like journalism was this gritty, kind of like grungy job, and you weren't paid much. And you really had to hit the streets. You really had to hit the pavements to try to get these stories. That was before social media. Now that there's social media, you don't have to do it as much unless you're an investigative journalist. But now they just handpick people for these roles, for these positions. Doesn't mean they're necessarily qualified. Doesn't mean they have a journalism background. Doesn't mean that they've even been a commentator before. They just pick the people that they know are going to represent the narrative that they want on that network. And that's important for people to know and for people to understand. Again, if you're just joining, I don't know who the next press secretary is going to be. I haven't heard anything about that, but you have a heads up now. Looks like she's going to be resigning in May, and that should be rather interesting. I wonder who will come in next. I'm going to go to some of the comments in the chat. Cryptician said, peace, glad to be here in one of the most mentally healthy places to be in this modern day madness. Oh, thanks, Cryptician. Oh, thank you. Leroy said they're always failing up to keep power to themselves. Yes. Eric O says revolving door, like between legislatures and lobbyists. Oh, that's a good point. Delthea, hello. Says, good evening, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. Delthea is a Sabby member. Bryce, put it perfectly. Can you lie for us? Yes, hired. I want to show you, I forgot to put this here, but a couple of people tweeted about this, and this is really funny, actually. I'll show you really quick. It's pretty funny. I was like, oh man, that's a good one. That's a good one. Where did it go? Go. Richard Medhurst. So Richard Medhurst had a tweet about this this change here. Listen to what he says. I should definitely try to see if I should get Richard Medhurst on. Listen to this. Richard Medhurst said Jen Psaki is resigning as White House press secretary to go work at MSNBC because it's literally the same job, but with better pay. She will fit right in with all the former FBI and CIA agents. I love it. I'm sorry. That one's really funny. Yes. Right. Miguel says, yes, get Richard Medhurst. I could try to bring him on. I should try. That one was really funny. There's one from Garland Nixon too. Let me show you, because that one, I do have that one saved. I think I retweeted that one. Yeah. I tweet too much. Ooh. Where do you go? Where did it go? I don't know if you guys remember that song or not. Where did it go? I guess it's under retweets. Shoot balls. I'm going to retweet. Where did you go? Yeah, guys. I'm so sorry, but I thought I saved that one, but that one was really good. But I definitely do tweet too much because I don't even see it now. Maybe I should take a tweet break. Tweet break. I give it one more second. If I can't find it, I'm moving on. Where did that one go? Shoot. Sorry, guys. I guess I only saved the one from Richie Medhurst. I'm so sorry. That blows. Sorry, kiddos. Oh, you know this song, Cryptician? I want to know, where do you go? Oh, I want to know. Bringing that back. Oh, man. Okay. I want to go into the second story in just a second. Actually, I'll take those comments on Rockfin, Eric. All right. Thanks for the tip on Rockfin, Roger Meadows. I love Ashura's picture of the thing knocking out General Thunderbolt Ross Red Hulk. Reminds me of the Oscars last week. Oh man. Now Christian Smalls looks more like Benji Grimm, the thing uppercutting Red Hulk Bezos. Or it is worker co-ops hitting corporations saying it's clobbering time. Also, Anderson Cooper admittedly worked for the CIA. There you go. Thanks for this tip as well. An amendment 10-year ban on U.S. Senate, U.S. House, the president, and the federal judiciary, along with the presidential cabinet and executive staff, judicial, congressional, and Senate staff from sitting on corporate boards, working as I don't know what's happening here. It keeps moving. Oh, okay. Working as lobbyists for think tanks, using previous public service positions as leverage to profit in any way after leaving government service or advancing corporate interests in any way. Yeah. This is why I also don't think that former politicians should be able to be lobbyists. I don't agree with that, but who am I? Who am I to know? Who am I to know? All right. I am going to go into the second story. And this one is about Kamala Harris. I don't know if you've seen this interview. If you didn't, don't worry. That's what I'm here for. So Kamala Harris had an interview with Joy Reid. There are some moments that I want to touch on here from this interview. I think that Kamala Harris, I've said this before, I think Kamala Harris needs to take a break from doing interviews. She does not know how to answer these questions, especially the ones about foreign policy. There are two parts here that I want to show you. So let me go ahead and get that ready. Where do you go? See, now the song is stuck in my head. Okay. I have it ready. So I'm going to go ahead and share here. I want to know. Oh, I guess that's better than having Return of the Mac stuck in my head, huh? That one was stuck in there for like a week one time. Yikes. Do not come, do not come. Yeah, I know, Lawrence. All right. Here's the interview, or part of the interview that Kamala Harris had with Joy Reid. Here's the first part I want to focus on. So let's go ahead and get into that.
That really in many ways is no different than what we're familiar with here in the U.S. The Ukraine crisis is a catastrophe. It's a catastrophe we're all watching happen in real time, where people with real needs and normal lives have been completely disrupted. Some 4 million Ukrainians have been displaced from their homes because of what Russia has decided to do. Both yourself and the president were in the region recently. And when the president was there, he gave a speech in Warsaw. It was
I just want to chime in here for a second, and then I'll get back into it. She talks about 4 million Ukrainians have been, displaced from their homes. I just want to remind everybody, including Joy Reid, you have thousands and thousands of Americans that have been displaced from their homes as well, and nobody attacked us. Where's the concern for that? Where's the concern for all the Americans that have been evicted in the past year? All the Americans that lost their homes because they lost their jobs during the pandemic, because Joe Biden cut the unemployment benefits. Where's the concern for all the Americans that have lost their homes? Because it's interesting to me how all of a sudden we can have such a great amount of empathy for people abroad going through some type of despair, but we can't seem to have that same empathy when we have people in our own countries who are going through the same thing. And no one's physically attacking us right now. This is because of economic issues. This is because of capitalism. And I don't see Joy Reid and a lot of these other famous commentators on MSNBC and CNN, I don't see them having that same concern for all the Americans that are losing their livelihood, that are losing basic necessities that they need in life in order to live and to survive. Joe Biden got rid of the child tax credit. So we have more children in poverty now. And I don't hear them talking about that. And when I see Ro Khanna go on all these different shows and brag, well, Joe Biden has done some really great things. There was the child tax credit. I'm not hearing too many people push back on Ro Khanna and say, but he took the child tax credit away. So the child poverty rate has increased in this country. So if we can care and have some type of sympathy for the kids abroad in Ukraine, why can't we have that same type of compassion and sympathy for the American children right here in the United States that have also been subjected to poverty right here at home? I'll go back into the video.
Well received by many, but he also said something that I think was received well by some, but kind of surprised others. He said that Vladimir Putin should no longer be the leader of Russia. Do you agree?
Listen, I think that you framed the point quite accurately and well, which is America's policy has been and will continue to be focused on the real issue at hand, which is one, the needs of the Ukrainian people, which we will continue to support through humanitarian assistance, through security assistance, but also ensuring that there's going to be serious consequence for Vladimir Putin and Russian aggression as it relates to Ukraine, which is why our policy from the beginning has been about ensuring that there are going to be real costs exacted against Russia in the form of severe sanctions, which we know are having a real impact and an immediate impact, not to mention the longer term impact, which is about saying there's going to be consequence and accountability when you commit the kinds of atrocities that he is committing. And I think the president has been an extraordinary leader. To your point, Joy, I've been to Poland. I was in Romania. I've been to Europe, I think, probably at least 3 times in the last 4 months. I was in Munich, Germany, where I gave a speech at the Munich Security Conference. I was in France before that, speaking with heads of state about this issue, among many other issues, but most recently about this issue. And I will tell you, in sitting down with prime ministers and presidents.
So far, she's been talking for about 1 minute. I timed it, and she still hasn't answered the question. That was a yes or no question. By the way, one of the things they do teach you when you major in broadcast journalism, not to ask people yes or no questions when you interview them. That's why a lot of times when you see me interview people, I usually end with, how do you feel about that? What does that mean to you? So I'm actually surprised she asked her a yes or no. That was a yes or no question. And the reason why they tell you not to ask close-ended questions is because the person you're interviewing can simply just say yes or no. And there's no elaborating. So then you got to come up with another question. So I'm surprised she asked her that, but she did not answer the damn question. She's been talking for a whole minute. Let's peep this. Let's watch this. Watch this. It's been a minute. I told you. I clocked it. We're going back to 4:15. Here we go.
But he also said something that I think was received well by some, but kind of surprised others. He said that Vladimir Putin should no longer be the leader of Russia. Do you agree?
Do you agree? Yes. No. That's it. That's it. She done went all around the world talking about, she went to Poland. She's going all around. Here comes the word salad. Wait for it. Incoming.
Listen, I think that you framed the point quite accurately and well, which is America's policy has been and will continue to be focused on the real issue at hand, which is one, the needs of the Ukrainian people, which we will continue to support through humanitarian assistance, through security assistance.
They have all of this money to continue. You heard her. She said they're going to continue to support the Ukrainian people. They can't even support the American people. Where's our money? Where's our humanitarian aid? Where's our universal health care? You got all this money to send abroad and you're not even helping the people at home first. Who else does that? Who else does that? How do you not take care of your own people? But you got all this money to take care of people abroad, and she just let you know they will continue to do so. Can't even help people here. Not one damn thing. Let her go on with the word salad.
But also ensuring that there's going to be serious consequence for Vladimir Putin and Russian aggression as it relates to Ukraine, which is why our policy from the beginning has been about ensuring that there are going to be real costs exacted against Russia in the form of severe sanctions, which we know are having a real impact and an immediate impact, not to mention the longer term impact, which is about saying there's going to be consequence and accountability when you commit the kinds of atrocities that he is committing. And I think the president has been an extraordinary leader. To your point, Joy, I've been to Poland. I was in Romania. I've been to Europe, I think.
That wasn't to Joy's point. To your point, Joy, I've been to Poland. I've been to Romania. Joy didn't ask you anything about that. Joy was asking you one simple question. That the president said that he believes that Putin should be removed. Kamala's response, to your point, Joy, I've been to Poland. I've been to Romania. Nobody brought this up. No one. Don't know what's happening.
Probably at least 3 times in the last 4 months. I was in Munich, Germany, where I gave a speech at the Munich Security Conference. I was in France before that, speaking with heads of state about this issue, among many other issues, but most recently about this issue. And I will tell you, in sitting down with prime ministers and presidents, often the first thing they would say to me is thank you to the United States and this administration for bringing us together, for building the coalition, for reinvigorating the relationship between the United States and its NATO allies, reinvigorating the relationship and the importance of the relationship to the EU in terms of an issue like Ukraine, which is ultimately about one of the most important principles that we are fighting for, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Well, I mean, you know, on Putin.
Never answered the question. Not once. She went on about NATO, bringing other countries together. That was not the question that Joy is asking. Kamala Harris is incredibly bad at this. She is not a good interviewer. She's not good at this. And I think they need to stop sending her on these interviews. I don't know who's coaching her, but she does not know how to answer the questions. And this isn't the first time we've seen this happen. We've seen this happen with every interview that she's had so far. So listen to what Joy says here. I'm going to fall back.
Specifically, I think that the world largely agrees, with very, very few exceptions, that what Putin has done has not only been destructive to Ukraine, he's destroying Ukraine utterly. There are places like Mariupol that are being wiped off the map, but he's destroyed his own country as well. He has made Russia into a lone nation, into a sort of North Korea. And the way that the world deals with countries like North Korea, countries like Cuba, is that they don't deal with them as normal nations as long as the dictator is in charge. Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, has said that sanctions should continue to be ratcheted up so long as as Russian troops are in Ukraine. Should those sanctions continue as long as Vladimir Putin is the dictator of Russia?
Yep, you're right. You were right. Interviewee or guest. She's not a good guest. My bad. Sorry about that. But I just want to add something here. I have to say something. Joy, as the interviewer, when someone doesn't answer your question, you come back and you ask the question again. And if you notice, Joy Reid did not ask that question again. This is how you push back. So you come back and you ask, but to my point, just want to get a clarity here. Do you feel that he should be removed? You ask it again. Come on. Now, she's been doing this a lot longer than me. Yes, I went to school for it. But I have to say, I really have to believe here that the reason why she did not ask that question again is because she didn't want to go hard on Kamala Harris. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if her boss told her to go easy on Kamala Harris. I would not be surprised if she was told to do that. But this is a fail here on Joy. As the interviewer, you come back and you ask that question again. I can understand if you were new with this, but she's not new. She's been doing this for a long time. She knows better. So now they've gotten to the point about sanctions. Hear what Kamala has to say about this.
Well, I'm not going to speculate, but about the future, I'm going to tell you where we are now. They are intact. And we will continue to upgrade them and make them so more severe as appropriate. And as far as we are concerned, everything is on the table.
That didn't make any sense. What Kamala said didn't make any sense. And you can tell she's not comfortable with this. She looks a little frightened there, almost like a deer in headlights. But what she said didn't make any sense. I'm going to play it for you again. Listen, she tells you she doesn't know about the future, but listen to this.
Vladimir Putin is the dictator of Russia.
Well, I'm not going to speculate, but about the future, I'm going to tell you where we are now. They are intact. And we will continue to upgrade them and make them so more severe as appropriate.
So she just told you about the future. She just told you they are intact and we will continue. So she's letting you know that they are going to continue to do this. But she said she can't speak for that doesn't make any sense. So long story short, they plan to continue to do this, continue the sanctions. And if so, they are going to increase them. Now, here's my question. For Joy Reid to ask her about the people suffering in Ukraine, about the kids, is anyone going to ask her about the people suffering in Russia that had nothing to do with this conflict at all? Just the citizens who were just living there trying to live their lives. Is anyone going to ask about those? What about the kids in Russia, though, too? And I want to make this very clear. This is not me trying to be a Putin like apologist, or I am not a Russian asset as people would try to do. They'll try to smear me in any kind of way, shape, or form. It's all right. I'm used to it. But you need to look at both sides. If you care about the kids in Ukraine, why don't you care about the kids in Russia? They didn't ask to be a part of this. I'll let her go on.
And as far as we are concerned, everything is on the table in that regard, because we are seeing extreme atrocities. We are seeing maternity hospitals being bombed. We're seeing a location that was so clearly designated as being a shelter, a place of safety for children. We are seeing, to your point, millions of people being displaced, potentially permanently.
We've also seen that happen in Palestine. We've seen it happen in Yemen. We've seen it happen in Somalia. Where's that same empathy and compassion for those people? Let's not sit here and pretend like this is only happening in Ukraine, that this is only happening to the Ukrainians. Where's that? This is why they would not let people like me, my comrades at RBN, hard lens media. This is why they would never let us interview these political officials in DC, because we would ask those questions and they don't want to answer those questions. They don't want to be interviewed by people that are actually going to challenge them on the issues. They definitely don't want to be interviewed by people that's going to ask them about the money. And Joy Reid isn't going to challenge her on that. And Kamala knows that. So I'll go back in.
In a war that was instigated, unprovoked, unjustified against a whole population of people. So yeah, the sanctions are going to be severe and they will last as long as these atrocities.
And there you go. And that just proves my point. She said the sanctions are going to be severe. So she just told you, oh, the hospitals and the poor people in Ukraine. But she doesn't seem to have that same empathy towards the people in Russia that are affected by the sanctions. That had nothing to do with this. How does Kamala Harris feel about the people in Afghanistan that are starving because of the sanctions put on them by the United States government? Does she have that same concern, that same passion for those people? Or no, because the United States government told you we're not supposed to like them. They're the enemy. And I would question who gets to decide who's an enemy or not. Because in a lot of these conflicts, in fact, most of these conflicts, there has been one common denominator, and that has been the United States. So if anything, the real enemy is us. Here we go.
And this aggression is continuing.
So no luck on getting you to weigh in on whether he should remain.
Well, no, listen, let me be very clear. Let me be very clear. We are not into regime change.
Sure. No. So you see how Joy said that? So no luck on getting you to respond about whether or not he should remain. Why did she say it like that? And you notice when she said it, she had a smile when she said it. Think about that for a second. Now, Kamala Harris responds and she says, well, we are not into regime. No, guys, I kid you not. Listen to this. Listen to this. And by the way, when Joy Reid was asking that question should have came directly after Kamala answered the first time. You follow up immediately after. I wouldn't have said no luck. I would have just been like, so do you agree? Yes or no? Listen to this. We are not into regime. Listen to this.
Let me be very clear. Let me be very clear. We are not into people. So yeah, the sanctions are going to be severe and they will last as long as these atrocities and this aggression is continuing.
So no luck on getting you to weigh in on whether he should remain.
Well, no, listen, let me be very clear. Let me be very clear. We are not into regime change, sure. And that is not our policy.
Yeah.
Period.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our democracy here because
we are not into regime change. Did I miss something? Let's take a look here, okay? We're not into regime change, you guys. Did you guys know that? Let's see regime change in the United States. Take a look at this. I'm going to fall to the back and I'm going to go straight to the list. I'm not even going to go through all of the articles. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I can't. Yeah, Eric, I can't move this at all. Oh, you got it there. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, I signed out again. 1 second, guys. I have to connect back to this real quick. Okay, I'm in now. I got it. All right. Let's look at the list, you guys. I can't make this up. I don't even have time to go through all of them. Pre-interventions. This is the United States. Pre-interventions, 1887. So let's try to be nice and let's just start with the 1900s. 1900s. Honduras, Cuba, Nicaragua. Let's go into the Wilson administration. Nicaragua, Mexico, Haiti. Remember when I tell you multiple times on the show how the United States has intervened in Haiti? How the United States has caused regime changes in Haiti? That's something I've talked about oftentimes. I need to go a little bit deeper into that. Let me make this a little bit larger. There we go. Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Germany, Austria and Hungary, Russia. Let's go into World War II and the aftermath. Japan, Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Philippines, Austria. Now we're going into the Cold War. South Korea, China, Greece, Costa Rica, Albania, Syria. See, we go all the way back to Syria, 1949. Let's go down to the 1950s. Burma and China, Egypt, Iran, Guatemala, Syria, Indonesia, South Vietnam, Cuba, 1960s. Who can forget the Congo? Laos, Dominican Republic, Brazil, Iraq, Indonesia, 1970s. Cambodia, Chile, Bolivia, Ethiopia, Angola, East Timor, Argentina, Afghanistan, 1979 to 1992. This is something I'm going to come out in just a second to say something here about Afghanistan, because this is really important. A lot of times when people mention U.S. intervention in Afghanistan, they're starting with the 1990s. But as you can see, this is going all the way back to 1979. And I think I talked about this on the show before, how after we intervened there in the 70s and then the policies were stricter, they increased strictness policies for women. I did talk about that on the show. I think I did talk about that on the show. But that goes back to 1979. I wasn't even born. Here we go. There's more. We're not done. 1980s, Poland, Chad, Nicaragua, Grenada, Panama, Paraguay. We've been in Nicaragua a lot, huh? 1981 to 1990, post-Cold War. This is the 90s. Iraq, again, Haiti, Iraq, Haiti, Zaire. You see, we were back in Haiti again in the 90s. Now, this is during the Clinton administration. 2000s, Yugoslavia, Afghanistan again, Iraq, Kyrgyzstan. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Palestinian territories, Syria, 2010 and beyond, Libya, Syria. This is regime changes and interventions. What the hell is Kamala Harris talking about? She's the vice president of the United States. How can she even say that? How does she not know this? Honestly, at this point, I don't know if it's that she just doesn't know or she does know and she's pretending not to know. But how can you just blatantly lie? Just blatantly lie. She's Black says the U.S. tried to intervene in Cuba, but they lost. Rest in power, Castro. Eric says she's paid not to know. I'll go back into the video. I have one more part here. We do not do that. Remember what she said. Here we go.
struggling with our democracy as well.
Yes.
As we all know, there was an insurrection, an attempted coup. I don't think there's any other way to describe it that took place last year. And as we get more information about what happened and who was behind it, we're finding out there were members of Congress who were complicit. There were United States senators. You're the president of the Senate as vice president of the United States. What do you think should be the consequences for people like Ted Cruz, people like Josh Hawley, who are now being named as we learn more about those who were actually putting together the plan to overthrow our election?
I think that what is very much at stake, I'm going to just make the connection first to the previous discussion in this one. You are absolutely spot on from my perspective that this is about our democracy and an attempt to weaken.
She's doing it again. Just answer the question. Joy doesn't need for you to repeat back to her what she said to you. She knows what she just asked you. Notice how it took her a minute there. She's like, and I'm not going to play into this part because YouTube will ping me, but I wanted you to see that. And I also thought it was interesting that right after Kamala says this, that we are not into regime changes, Joy doesn't even watch it. She doesn't even push back. Watch.
Is continuing.
So no luck on getting you to weigh in on whether he should remain.
Well, no, listen, let me be very clear. Yeah. Let me be very clear. We are not into regime change, and that is not our policy.
Yeah.
Period.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our democracy here because we're struggling.
Joy Reid just went on and said, absolutely. Now, Joy Reid has to know that that's a lie. Has to know that that's a lie. When the question that was presented to Kamala Harris by Joy Reid was, President Biden said that Putin should be removed. So here you have the president saying he should be removed. And then the vice president is telling you we're not into that. We don't do regime change. No, we don't do that, which is a lie. And Joy Reid didn't even push back. You push back. Well, Vice President Harris, President Biden said he wants them gone. And he's the president. And the president is the commander in chief. She still really didn't answer the question. Do you think he should be removed? Yes or no? She just goes, well, we're not into regime, changes. This is absolutely embarrassing. I don't know how much Kamala Harris knows about foreign policy, but someone needs to get her up to speed. Could you imagine her doing that interview with someone from the gray zone? How do you not know? How do you not know? That history I just laid out for you, I bet you Kamala Harris couldn't do that. I didn't even have to look it up because I already knew that the United States government has been doing that. Oh, well, I would say we're not into... So it also appears that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are not in sync with each other. And this isn't the first time that we've seen this happen. They are not on the same page. I'm going to go to some of the comments and then I'm going to go into the third story. Delthea said, I'm lost. It's a softball interview. And she not only can't hit the slow pitches, she's playing hopscotch. Well said. Well said. Ashura said, unprovoked Donbas, Azov shelling for 8 years in eastern Ukraine. This is probably one of the easiest interviews I've seen Kamala have, meaning that this is somebody here who is clearly on your side. clearly on your side. You can't answer their questions. I live there. Says Kamala went to high school in Montreal. We own that. The rest is on y'all. All right. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Carr says, I read she never prepares. That's terrible. Like, how do you not prepare for these? A lot of times, guys, you know, you can request to have the questions beforehand. You know, I've had people do that with me before. They want to know the questions I'm going to ask. You can request that. Super Patriot, you know it's easy because she wasn't cackling like a maniac. Right? Right? I'm going to go into the third story. And this one is about hypocrisy. Now, I don't know if you are familiar with David Axelrod, but he was a senior advisor to Barack Obama at one point. He was against Medicare for all. Over the weekend, some of us have been calling him out about his hypocrisy in reference to Medicare for all, because now he's starting to see the struggles that the American people are dealing with, especially those who are poor, those who are working class, those who don't have health insurance. He's starting to see what they're having to deal with in this healthcare system. Check this out. This is coming from David Axelrod. I've been taking an RX for a chronic condition for years. This week, I learned my health insurance no longer covers it. Now the cost is $639 a month. How many people can afford that? Your money or your life is a hell of a choice that people shouldn't have to face. Let's walk through this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's walk through this. You have people responding here. Katie Penterman, my insulin is now $2,778 a month because insurance no longer covers it. Ann James, my husband's Trulicity is $2,000 a month, 4 shots. My insurance denied. Ozempic, it was higher in price. Jill, try paying $787 a month for student loans after your husband has a stroke and is permanently disabled. No negotiation, no compensation from my Fed loan, a life sentence of debt. I'm an educator, not wealthy. Hashtag cancel student loans. Let's talk about this for a second. And then I'm going to show you some of the things that he said. Obviously, I don't think that anyone should have to pay $600 a month for any type of prescription medication. Obviously, I know that the healthcare system is corrupt, that big pharma is corrupt. And I've been talking about this for a long time. Do I have some type of empathy? Of course, I don't want anyone to have to pay that out of pocket. But the hypocrisy is killing me. David Axelrod, I've been taking an RX for a chronic condition for years. This week, I think my camera got fuzzy. No, I look fuzzy. Nope, maybe not. I've been taking an RX for a chronic condition for years. This week, I learned my insurance no longer covers it. Now the cost is $639 a month. How many people can afford that? And here's the thing, David Axelrod can afford it. I want to be very clear. David can afford it. This is a perfect example when people say, well, get a job that has health insurance. That should not be the answer. This is a perfect example of having health insurance and still having to deal with astronomical costs from the pharmaceutical industry. Because just because you have health insurance, that does not mean that your insurance company a year or two from now is not going to change their mind and decide not to cover your prescription. And I've had this happen to me a couple of years ago. Most of you know this. I have really bad allergies to the point where I had to get allergy shots. I'll be done in September. It's been 5 years. They actually do work. A couple of years ago, I went to refill my prescription. It's a nasal spray. That's it. It's just a nasal spray. Boop. It's not over the counter. I went to refill it. And the pharmacist told me, your insurance company does not cover this. And the first thing I said, well, that's impossible. They've always covered it. She said, they're not covering it anymore. I said, okay, I'll go ahead and pay full price. And I knew something was wrong when she looked at me and she said, do you want to know how much it is first? That was the red flag. I said, sure. She said $200 for a nasal spray. That prescription only lasts for 30 days, which meant every month I would have to pay $200 for that nasal spray. Boop. That's it. That's all it does is boop, but it works. $200. And this is why I do not think that just give people, expand Obamacare. This is why this does not work. This is why. Because the insurance companies at any time can change their mind and decide not to cover a prescription that you may have been taking your entire life. This happens to people. What if it's something that's life-saving? What about people who are asthmatic and they have to have an inhaler? What happens if the insurance company all of a sudden decides not to cover that? How much does it cost without insurance? How much does an EpiPen cost without insurance? And that is also a life-saving prescription for some people. An EpiPen, they told me it was $500 without insurance. And you can only use it once. $500. You want to know who's in charge of that? Joe Manchin's daughter. Surprise, surprise. This is why just having insurance is not the answer. This is why we need Medicare for all. Everybody should be covered in this country, should have universal health care. These prescription drugs, these pharmaceutical companies, they are killing us. They really are. People shouldn't have to ration insulin, which people do, especially a lot of elderly people who are only living off of their Social Security, which, by the way, it's not much. And they are on that fixed income, having to ration insulin. That should not even happen in this country. And I've noticed some people were pretty quiet about Medicare for all last year. And now all of a sudden that it's election season again. Now all of a sudden they're talking about it. I don't know if you've noticed that either, but I've noticed it. Yipper99 says, Sabs, I had a medication that was $967. I just deal without state insurance can be some BS. Yeah. Oliveras in Canada said $500 for an EpiPen, not here in Canada. This is criminal. Absolutely. It's a problem. And I'm going to tell you, for those of you who are new and don't know, when I was growing up, we had TRICARE. TRICARE, for the most part, paid for everything. I didn't even know what a copay was until I was off of my parents' insurance and I had to get my own. But TRICARE was available to us because my dad was in the military. Hence why I have issues with war and imperialism in the military industrial complex. I've heard it all from my dad. The problem that I have with it is that you shouldn't have to be a part of the military industrial complex to receive that benefit. If they can give TRICARE, which is the best insurance, I'm just gonna be honest with you, is the best one. If they can give that to people who are in the military, they can give that to everyone in the United States. I don't even remember my parents paying more than $3 for prescription medication under TRICARE. They cover it. For the most part, they cover it. Why can't we give that to everyone? I'm going to go to some of the comments in the chat, and then I'm going to show you what he said about Medicare for all. What's going on? Marcus Cage says, you never request the question, Sabby, nor do most of us in independent media. If we can do it, she should be able to. She's just not that bright. Thanks for the super chat, Delthea Simmons. Insurance is a racket. Healthcare is killing us. 100%. Leroy said, cost our daughter $83K for her to do a post-kidney transplant treatment for 3 days. Why do they think people have that money? No, listen, most people don't even make that in a year. $83,000. George Livaputo says, in the UK, you just go to the hospital and it's totally free. No one asks about money. This is truth. Sandra, dental is brutal too. No one can afford it. No, they can't. And I can tell you another thing about dental. Even some companies that offer health insurance, some of them don't offer dental to the employees. I guess they feel like your teeth aren't important. In Deep says Congress gets free health care. Boom. It's not right. It's not right. Now I'm going to show you what David Axelrod said. Let me pull up my little images here. I'm going to share my screen. I just want to remind everybody, because some of you may have never heard of him. So here we go. Boop, 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 boop. David Axelrod, let me fall to the back so you can see this, who served as Obama's chief campaign strategist and senior White House advisor, spoke Friday at a conference in Nashville, Tennessee, hosted by America's Health Insurance Plans, a Washington, D.C.-based trade organization. AHIP opposes the idea of Medicare for all, since it would eliminate the need for private insurance. You hear this? Axelrod, now a senior political commentator for CNN, acknowledged that healthcare costs represent an onerous burden for many families. Even so, he predicted Democrats won't approve a government-run universal healthcare system if they manage to defeat Donald Trump and win control of the Senate in 2020. Again, he spoke at AHIP, America's Health Insurance Plans. AHIP opposes the idea of Medicare for all simply because it would eliminate the need for private insurance. In other words, there's no money in it. There's no money in it. There's more. It goes on. Listen to this. That's the tame part, by the way. David goes on to speak. I don't think Medicare for all, certainly not at this stage. I don't think there's a consensus. Even if there were a Democratic president, frankly, even if there were a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House, I don't think the Bernie Sanders version of Medicare for all is going to be implemented. Let me go down. between 2009 and 2010, AHIP quietly funneled more than $100 million to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to defeat the Affordable Care Act. Although the bill passed, Democrats ultimately scraped the idea of a public option or a government health insurance plan that had been sought by progressives. You see how this works? This same organization where he attended the conference, they were funneling money to prevent universal health care in this country. David didn't feel the need for Medicare for all at that point. That's the thing. There's more about this, but I'm looking at my time, but there is more about this as well. He didn't feel the need for it. Switch up my banner here at the bottom. Didn't feel the need for it. He didn't feel the need for it. Didn't seem it was as important because he was not directly affected. Now he is. This goes back to something that I often say on the show. I've noticed this pretty much all throughout my adult life. Oftentimes, people, whether you're on the left, whatever you want to call yourself, people may care about an issue, but if the issue is not fixed or resolved, it's easier for them to turn the other cheek when they are not directly affected. One of the things that I've learned as I've gotten older is that oftentimes people don't care as much about issues that don't affect them directly. I'm going to say this again. Oftentimes, people don't care as much about issues that don't affect them directly. That is actually not uncommon. And we see that happen time and time again in this country, in other countries as well. And I've seen it living in a blue state. I live right here in Massachusetts. Some people consider it to be liberal. Some people say we're progressive. I would argue it's a mixture of both. But even some of the progressives here aren't really as left as you would think. And one of the things that I noticed is that it seemed like there were a lot of people, leftists, that after George Floyd, they said, let's rise up. Let's go out there and fight. Let's shut it down. And then the moment that Donald Trump lost, they went home. As if the issue of police brutality ended because Biden won. They didn't make the connection. That was never supposed to be a left-right issue. That was a human rights issue. And you talk to the people who were activists in DC at that time. I talked to Afeni. I've talked to Chuck Modi about this as well. And they will tell you, they were there on the ground. The moment Biden won, all the white people went home. Black protesters still there saying this is still an issue. But again, if you're not directly affected, oftentimes I talk about the class issue on this show. I talk about class divide a lot because I really want people to see and understand that it's really not about left versus right. It's really about the people at the top. They are the ones who really control what's going on in this country. And they've been in control. This is why I continue to tell you that both parties answer to Wall Street. They're owned by corporations, big pharma, tech, military industrial complex. They're owned. Raytheon. When you think about David Axelrod, I want you to remember that even though he is now directly affected, the difference between him and us is that he can afford to pay $639 a month. I don't know about you guys, but I can't. If I got hit with a $639 bill, I would be screwed. I can't afford to pay that. Most people I know cannot. So David Axelrod can tweet about it, but what is he really going to do? Someone who is living in poverty that just got hit with that $639 bill. And it's a life-saving medicine that they have to take. What are they going to do? And I'm talking about the people who may be at that income bracket where they are not eligible for Medicaid. Maybe they missed it just by $100 or so. This happens. And the health insurance they had at their job, just like they did to David, said, nope, we're not covering this anymore. What do you do? I don't think a lot of people that I see, whether it's independent media, whether it's on mainstream TV, I don't think a lot of them really have a window to what poverty really looks like in the United States and what it really feels like. If you've never been poor, how do you know? How do you truly know? And you can't always trust what you see about poverty on the news. How do you know? How do you know if you've never lived in those neighborhoods? How do you know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck if you've never had to live paycheck to paycheck? How do you really, really know? Sometimes people will turn to television. There was a show back in the 70s. There was a show, it was a sitcom. It was a funny show, but at the same time, it gave you a window of what it feels like and what it looks like to live in poverty in this country, particularly as an African American. And the name of that show was called Good Times. Probably one of the best shows on television in a long time. Good Times was a show about an African American family that lived in Chicago. They lived in the projects. Again, it was a sitcom. They touched on a number of issues on that show, some considered to be controversial for that time. Got to remember the time period. That is the only show that I have seen that I can say really showed you a window of what it is like to be poor in this country. Not only what it's like to be poor, but what it is like to be poor and Black. And one of the actors from that show, James Avery, he played James. He played the father on the show. James Avery decided to leave the show. Now, there were a number of conflicts about this. There were some personality differences, but there was something that he said in an interview that I saw a couple years ago, that one of the reasons why he decided to leave the show is because he felt like the family was never getting ahead. James Avery said they never got out of poverty. He said every time something good happened to the family, by the end of the episode, it was taken away. And I thought about that for a second and I said, you know what? He's right. Every time something good happened, whether it's the episode where JJ found money, or it's the episode where Thelma got into the prestigious school, every time at the end of the episode, the good thing was taken away. And so they were never able to get ahead. They were never able to get out of poverty. Now, I'm going to talk about this from two different perspectives. As the actor, I can understand how that may have frustrated him. I guess as an actor, at some point, you want to see your character grow, right? James Avery's character, he was a high school dropout, or actually, I don't think his character went to high school, excuse me. So in some sense, his kids were educating him on some issues. Hardworking, but they were poor. And you saw that throughout the show. So as someone who's the actor, I can understand him getting frustrated. Like, look, when are we going to move forward? Like, why are we going to stay this way? I get it. But I also want to look at it from a realistic perspective as well. And the thing about that show is that the producers were right in the sense that most people in poverty do not get out of poverty. Most people in poverty stay there. And yes, there are times where good things may happen and opportunities may come up. But because of the situation, the economic situation that you are in, you can't get out. You can't accept that good thing, or it's taken away from you. You may have just won a prize. I think there was a show where JJ won an award, got robbed, got mugged on the way home. These things happen. And so I understand James Avery's frustration, but the reality is most people born into poverty do not get out of poverty. Few do. And the ones that do are outliers. This is what happens in a capitalist system. Why do we have so many people living in poverty in this country? Why can't they get out? Because the little bit of assistance that is given to them by the United States government is just enough to keep them where they are. It's never enough for them to get out. It's never enough for them to get ahead. It's just enough to keep them poor. If you have not seen that show, I highly recommend that you watch it. I have not seen a show on television that really showed what it is like to be poor and Black in this country the way that that show did. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, I think that was the last time we saw that on television. And you have to ask yourself why. There's no money in that. It all goes back to capitalism. So I thought about Good Times earlier because JB actually had on a Florida Evans shirt during his stream on Sunday on RBN. And I wondered to myself, where did JB get that shirt from? And I've had the Good Times theme song in my head since yesterday. Thanks, JB. But I was thinking about that show and I realized, like, you just don't see anything like that anymore. You just don't. There's a lot of reality shows of all these rich people, Kardashians, people who want to marry millionaires. There's a lot of that. This was the cast of Good Times. There's a lot of that, right? Where's the reality show of what it's like to be poor? Where's that show? Again, there's no money in that. It's too bad we don't have something like that today. Little tidbit here. The actress who played Thelma, I actually met her, not on purpose. I used to work at the auditorium on campus, and she was in one of the plays. And you work at the auditorium, you get to see like free shows. And she was in one of the plays. And believe it or not, She looked exactly the same. Like she didn't age at all. It was really strange. I was like, damn, what has she been doing? Good times. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I'll go to some of the comments in the chat. Big Teal, I remember the quote when the father was trying to figure out how to pay for a bill. He said that even after he dies, he would still be paying back debt. I was like, damn. Yep. Yeah. So the point is, again, like I said, David Axelrod, he can pay $639 a month. And that show showed you what it was like when they were hit with those kind of financial struggles. How were they going to get the money? Where were they going to get the money from? So you had to pick up another job. Some people will never know what that's like. Just being real. I like to end on a good note, though. Good Times had a really cool theme song. Really cool theme song. I'll get into that in a second. I'll take those comments on Rockfin, Eric. All right. Thanks so much for the comments here. Oh, I can't see. Okay. Thanks for the tip, Roger Meadows. When the Dem Party sent Ro Khan out here in the press to speak to the left, how is that any different when a corporation is screwing the Black community and the executives refuse to meet with the community, so they send their one Black guy out to speak with us? Hey, what's your name? Kun Tom? Oh, Khan. That's right. Go out there and talk to your people. You speak their language, right? We hired you for placation. Thanks so much for this tip as well. Remember the late, great working class hero who'd be proud of Smalls today? Ed Schultz said before he died, Phil Griffin at the last minute stopped him from covering the launch of the Bernie 2016 campaign on Lake Champlain. He also said he received more scrutiny from MSNBC than of RT. So you ask if Joy was stopped by Phil and Adam. I say, abso-freaking-lutely. Thanks for this tip as well. Looks like Sabby found her ballot initiative row file. It's hanging and having a jiving, not hanging in a chow line. No, it's hanging in the chow line. John Amos, Sab. James Avery was Uncle Phil. Right, John Amos. God, I'm so sorry. My bad, you guys. John Amos. How did I mix those two up? It's hanging in a chow line. It's hanging in a... It's... Wait a minute. It's... Taking a... It's temporary layoffs. Good times. Easy credit ripoffs. Good times. Scratching and surviving. Good times. Hanging in a chow line. It's hanging in a chow line. Am I right? Drew Chain said, yes, you're right. Thank you. I'm about to say it's chow line. Hanging in a chow line. That's my favorite part from that song, by the way. Prime 54 said they went over this on Chappelle's show. Thank you so much for the reminder, Prime 54. Yeah. Keeping our head. Yeah, see, Leroy knows it's chow line. Keeping our head above water. Oh, I don't know the next part. Wait, keeping our head above water? I thought it was just looking out of the window. Oh, keeping our head above water. Making a way when you can. Temporary layoffs. Good times. Easy credit ripoffs. Good times. Scratching and surviving. Hanging in a chow line. That's my part. All right. Delthea Simmons, shout out for being a member for 9 months. In the house of the poor, the walls are thin. Trouble reigns and trials blow through the cracks and holes, and the good times just don't come. Well said. Well said. All right. Super Patriot says, stop it, Sabby. I'm going to get this song stuck in your head. I would play it on here if I could, but you know, I can't. Copyright. Copyright. Oh, thank you, George. All right, guys. Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. And I have a couple news stories tomorrow. Also, Logan will be here to teach you how to grow your own food if you live in an apartment. That's very important because that's a big question I've been getting from people. What about those of us that live in an apartment? Logan does that. He's going to show you how to do it. And I have a couple news stories I'm going to go over tomorrow night as well. So should be a good time. Other than that, guys, it's 8:36. It's time for me to go. But before I do, hanging in a child line. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.